Joyanne Reid of MSNBC is diving headfirst into red baiting for the 2020 election, and she did a segment laying out who the Russian favorites are in the Democratic primary. Look.
If you think about 2016, you think about now. From my outside looking in, perspective, it appears that the Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Biden sort of dichotomy sounds very similar to the either Bernie Sanders or Jill Stein versus Hillary Clinton dichotomy. It feels like the Russians are running the same game, only now Biden is Hillary and Tulsi Gabbard is Jill Stein/Sanders.
Right. So it's slightly different in 2020 only because President Trump is the incumbent this time. So for them, it's secure the base, split the opposition, just like a political campaign. And so from Putin's perspective, sure, he would love to see Trump in there. And to get that outcome, well, you go against the biggest challengers, to Trump, and you try and prop up people that are divisive or splitting the opposition on the Democratic side. So this would be populist candidates on the political left. Draw from the world, which is a message that Russia wants Americans saying to Americans. So it's a great opportunity for them.
Yeah, she uses the term regime change wars a lot, which is a common term, in my understanding of the way that Russia talks about the United States.
So the term regime change war is Russian propaganda, according to Joyanne Reid. Well, what are you supposed to call it when the U.S. Either covertly or otherwise decides to overthrow a government that is not threatening us and is not attacking us? When we do an offensive invasion of a country, whether it's the CIA or whether it's the military or whatever it might be, we overthrow a country that wasn't going to attack us. What do you want to call that? What do you want to call that? They're a regime, and we are trying to change that regime through a war. It's literally like a tautology. Regime change war. That's what it is. But what she's trying to hint at is, that's portraying America in a negative light. And you know who else likes to portray America in a negative light? Putin. Russia. So what? Let me get this straight. Are we not allowed to talk about America in a negative light in any way, shape, or form? Are we not allowed to talk about any serious issues that need fixing? Because it's so easy to look at, somebody describing a problem and saying we need to fix this. It's so easy to look at it and say, that's anti-American. And you know who wants to sow division and discord? Putin. So you're feeding into you're doing Putin's bidding. But guys, this is literally what they did. This is what they did. They looked at Black Lives Matter protests and said, Putin, sowing discord in America. As if we needed Putin to get involved in order for people to recognize, hey, there are some underlying racial issues in this country that need addressing. I don't think Black Lives Matter would exist if it wasn't for the Kremlin. This is the stuff that they actually push out there. This is what they do, and they push it out there because in the philosophy of the establishment Democrats, the status quo is more or less pretty good. And so if you really want to challenge that status quo, you really want to change stuff, you really want to move us left, obviously you're doing Russia's bidding. I mean, the thing that's so frustrating about this is it's also just so lowbrow too. It's not even mildly convincing propaganda. They put up a chart and literally gave numbers as to which candidates Russia prefers. So, Russia mentions of the Democratic candidates, and I'm sure this is just like they went to RT and grabbed from the coverage at RT these numbers. But RT, the great Ed Schultz used to work at RT. Tom Hartman used to work at RT. Abby Martin used to work at RT. There are plenty of people who work in U.S. media and then go work at RT. Scotty Nell Hughes, Jesse Ventura, everything they say now is Russian, is like, Putin believes X, the Kremlin believes X. No. I mean, it's like the BBC. Like, if you hear something from the BBC, you go, Britain says X. No, one commentator at the BBC says X. But see what they do? They try to, this is scaremongering, this is fearmongering, you're supposed to go, ooh, who does Russia prefer? Well, I want the opposite of that person. I don't want that person. But, okay, so let's look at the chart. The chart says only 3% of the coverage of Biden is favorable from Russia, which I think just means on RT. Well, yeah, they're right, because he's a terrible candidate, and he says insane things. 44% is neutral coverage, 53% is negative coverage. 19% of of Bernie's coverage is favorable, 62% is neutral, 19% is negative. And then the one that they give the most positive coverage to is Tulsi, 46% positive, 44% neutral, 10% unfavorable. So what they're trying to get out here is, look at the people who get the least favorable coverage from Russia. Those are your serious candidates. So in other words, that would mean get rid of Bernie Sanders, get rid of Tulsi Gabbard. The ones to take seriously are Biden, Harris, and Warren. That's what they're pushing out there. Because they want you to think something's got to be off if Russia's giving you favorable coverage. Or maybe, and hear me out, they don't want to see somebody elected in the U.S. who might escalate towards war with them. Maybe there's that. Now, by the way, one fact blows up this entire nonsense propaganda that they're pushing out here. You know who Russia favored in 2008 and 2012? Barack Obama. And it wasn't close. They much, much more preferred Obama. When you look at the Romney versus Obama debates, Obama, in no uncertain terms, attacked Mitt Romney because he said Mitt Romney's trying to pretend like we're still in the Cold War. The 1980s called, they want their foreign policy back. That's what he said. Obama did not want to arm rebel groups in Ukraine to fight Russia because he viewed that as a massive escalation and an offensive act on our part. Trump did arm the Ukrainian rebels who are fighting Russia, and he still gets accused of being a Russian puppet. That makes no sense. It makes no sense. But would Joyanne Reid in 2008 and 2012 wag her finger at Obama and say, ooh, something weird is going on here. Something weird is going on here because why does Vladimir Putin prefer Barack Obama? Look at the favorable coverage Obama gets from Russia compared to Mitt Romney. Ooh. See, guys, this is what I'm trying to get across to you is McCarthyite smears. This is just a right-wing position. That's what this is. You're taking a right-wing position. Why? Because the underlying philosophy here is hawkishness, is we have to be against them. We have to be against them. They're evil, they're wrong, they're bad, they're meddling, and we have to be against them come hell or high water. So you can't do real change. You can't be for candidates who are for peace, like Tulsi or Bernie. You have to be for the ones who are more hawkish and more in favor of sanctions and more in favor of escalating with Russia. If they had this same philosophy in 2008 and 2012, they would have been fear-mongering about Obama being a Russian asset, and they would have been saying Romney's the serious one and McCain's the serious one. Because look, Romney and McCain got more negative coverage from Russia. That means by definition they're better. Except they're not. I agree with 2008 Obama and 2012 Obama. That's who I agree with. I agree with Bernie and Tulsi. That's who I agree with. I don't want to do sanctions. I don't want to escalate towards war. I want to go in the other direction. I wouldn't have armed rebel groups in Ukraine to fight Russia. By the way, many of those rebel groups have neo-Nazi ties, if not are flat-out neo-Nazis. So I know that's a politically incorrect thing to say, but it's true. It's true. So, but this is all they have, guys. They can't take on Bernie and Tulsi and the left on actual policy disagreements. So what do? McCarthyite smears. She really argued. She says regime change war a lot. That's terminology that Russia likes. By the way, you wonder why MSNBC perpetually has the worst ratings among the three big cable news networks. Fox News is number 1, CNN is number 2, MSNBC is number 3. And by the way, they're comfortable with being in that position. They are. They're like, yeah, okay, that's what we are. Except maybe if you ran a network that actually gave a shit about issues and actually, fought for those left positions from a principled perspective, maybe you'd go up in the ratings. They've lied to themselves and said, well, since TV is more generational and it's older people who watch TV and we're more left, that's why we're not getting as many views because just not as many young people watch TV. If you had an actual vision at that network at MSNBC, you could overcome that bias, that generational problem. If MSNBC was run by real lefties, it can become the number 1 network. Everybody just conceded, like, oh yeah, Fox is always going to be number 1. Why? Why have you conceded that? Work harder. Have a better philosophy at MSNBC, and then maybe you can win. But when you push nonsense like this, it's no wonder you're doing so terrible in the ratings. I mean, what do you really believe? They believe in hawkishness. They believe in Cold War hysteria. And as my friend Jimmy Dore says, this is why you get your news from YouTube.